Hey everybody, Doug here. Real quick, I meant to publish this episode before my flight to Portland last week, before the Oscars have aired, but I was too busy packing and working. I just forgot about it. But you'll definitely hear my predictions for the Oscars at the end of the episode if you still want to hear that. But again, Oscars have already happened. They already aired. Congrats to all the winners. Hope you still enjoy this episode of my review of Bradley Cooper's Maestro, as well as Amazon Prime's Reacher Season 2. And sit back, relax, and enjoy the episode. What's going on, everybody? Happy March. Doug here, one of the hosts, producers, and creators of the Genre of Your Life podcast, is bringing you all a review roundup episode this week. No full episode of the Genre of Your Life podcast this week. I'll be traveling to Portland. Don't worry, the boys and I will be back next week as always with a fun episode for you all. In the meantime, I have this review roundup episode this week. On this week's review roundup episode, I'll be reviewing Bradley Cooper's Maestro. I finally got to see Maestro on the big screen. I could see on Netflix, but I refused. I wanted to watch on the big screen. Luckily, the Regal by me had it. Also be reviewing Amazon Prime's hit show Reacher Season 2. And of course, I'll be giving my final predictions of the Oscars this week, which will be this Sunday the 10th. So got a bit of a jam-packed review roundup episode for you all this week. As always, guys, you can find the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, or your favorite podcast platform of choice. We also have a full audio show on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Midway Avenue Productions. I believe Google Podcasts will be coming YouTube Music this week. So if you're a Google Podcast subscriber, the many few that you are probably, I think you'll be transferring to YouTube Music. So look out for our show on that platform. But always, guys, please review, rate the show. They're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. But if you're on Apple Podcasts, please review, please rate the show. We're trying to get to that 200 by next month. 200 ratings, that is. So please review, rate, share the word about us with your friends, family, fellow podcasters, fellow movie fans, TV fans. Your support means the world to us. So as always, guys, thank you so much for the ongoing support. We all truly appreciate it. Alrighty, guys. So like I said, we've got a bit of a jam-packed review roundup episode for you all this week. I'll start off with Maestro, actually. Maestro is directed by Bradley Cooper. It is the biopic of the great composer, legendary composer, Leonard Bernstein. His life, his legacy, his music, his family, his ups and downs. And, having gone to film school, I learned a lot more about Leonard Bernstein, through film classes, classical classes. And then as I got older, learning more about classical films and, Hollywood and composers, stuff like that. He's one of the most legendary composers of all time, no doubt about it. His music speaks for itself, but what's that story? The music is so just iconic, and I think there's still a few composers left that are still had that kind of like old school Hollywood feel to it. John Williams, Hans Zimmer, Michael Giacchino, and it's definitely just like in awe of like how when you hear his music, you definitely know like it's like the legacy he had. And I mean, again, from Broadway shows to movies, entertainment, orchestras, everything, he's definitely one of the greats, no doubt about it. But I didn't really know about his personal life, obviously, till hear about this movie. And when I heard Bradley Cooper was going to direct it and star in it, I was like, sign me up. Like, Bradley Cooper, if you don't know, my favorite actor of all time. Star is Born to me just hit a core for me, and I think where I differ on other certain Star is Born is that was my first time ever seeing a Star is Born iteration. Now there's been 4 before that, but I remember seeing that in theaters junior year of college, and it just stuck with me. Just the impact it had, the emotional impact it had on me, just the beautiful storytelling from Bradley Cooper, from Lady Gaga, and seeing that was his first movie he ever directed. I was like, wow, Bradley Cooper's been up 10 times in my book. And, from Hangover to Silver Linings Playbook, American Hustle, Joy, list goes on and on, American Sniper. Limitless, like, he's one of my favorite actors of all time, probably my favorite actor of all time. I'm just in awe of this guy. And so when I heard his follow-up was going to be Maestro, I was like, didn't know about it. I learned more about it. And then I heard, wow, Spielberg's producing it, Scorsese's producing it. Like, he has Carey Mulligan's going to star in it with him. I'm like, wow, this is quite the, star power. Then I heard it's going to be on Netflix. And, someone who does support Netflix and streaming, very just like, it's definitely the new entertainment norm nowadays. And I was a bit disappointed because I'm like, oof, I would have loved to see this as a theatrical run. And I heard it was a theatrical run. And I remember, I think it came out like around Christmas. And I think the theaters out here in AZ, I think one or two theaters got it, and I didn't get to see it in theaters. I was watching it on Netflix. Fine, I'll bite the bullet. It is what it is. But for some reason, I kept prolonging watching it. I'll watch it next week. I'll watch it next week, and I was like, I gotta watch it before the Oscars. Like, come on now. And then sure enough, I live by a Regal theater, and the Regal said, "Hey, we're showing all the movies on the big screen, all the Oscar movies." I was like, "Please show it, Maestro." And yes, they did, which I think Regal does not show Netflix movies that often, which is pretty cool to see. So I was like, "Okay, cool, I'm there. Let's go." And went over the other day, walked up to my little theater, and lo and behold, I was the youngest audience member there, and B, I was kind of surprised of how bit of a crowd it had. I was like, wow, I mean, I guess these people that either didn't have Netflix or just heard about going to see a Discount Tuesday movie. And yeah, it was not crowded, but a decent crowd where I was like, huh, good to know this movie still has maybe a bit of a pull in the theaters. But yeah, I went over watched it. I was, I was right. The first trailer came out in August. I was just like, I had to see this movie now. I love Stars Born. I love Bradley Cooper. Love Carey Mulligan. I was like, the trailer just sold me right away, no matter what. And again, the name sold it right away. And I'm like, of course, I'm there. Still was mad about the Netflix thing, but again, to each their own. And excited about watching this, and I'll tell you what, right away, Bradley Cooper to me is becoming a better director. I thought his direction in Stars Born was awesome. I thought it was really close to perfect. And to me, I see him getting stronger and better as a director, as a filmmaker with this, because this movie is definitely ambitious for him as an actor, director, also writing and producing it. And you could tell his direction is getting really stronger, getting more solid. He's more of a foundation as a filmmaker. And he definitely has a love letter to tell stories about music and the impact of music, together with Stars Born, with singing and rock and roll. And this also has an underlying message of love and music, similar to him and Lady Gaga's chemistry in Stars Born. But in this, it's the love story of his music and love story he has with Carey Mulligan, his who plays his wife, Felicia. I'm gonna butcher her last name, Felicia Montalegre. And I thought that I see a pattern of his filmmaking that, like, wow, he's telling love stories through the eyes of music, whether it's, again, rock and roll or composing, which is in this movie. And from what I've heard, a lot of people were saying, like, this is definitely his, like, passion project. And I can definitely see that, I thought Stars Born was his passion project, but from what I've heard from interviews and other podcasts and other reviews, is that, like, this movie was his passion project. Like, he wanted to make this movie so badly. Like, he was shooting for that Oscar. I think a lot of people got docking him for that. Like, he's kind of Oscar hungry, and I'm like, the guys were nominated for like over 10 times, I want to say, and I thought he definitely deserved it in Stars Born, probably his best performance. But I thought he was great in Silver Linings, American Hustle. I mean, list goes on and on. But you can definitely tell, like, he's aiming for that Oscar. And I thought even his small role in Licorice Pizza by PTA was hilarious and kind of stole the show. But you can tell there's a lot of passion behind his acting and filmmaking in this. With the good, like I said, the passion's there. I think this movie is shot incredibly well. Like I said, if you told me this was made by a second-time director, I'd be like, no way. Like, it definitely has the feels of like Steven Spielberg, Martin Scorsese, David Fincher at times, and well as Damien Chazelle. And I definitely see that Bradley Cooper is definitely evolving as a filmmaker, because I think he's been around huge sets and other filmmakers, and you can tell he's learned a lot from his time as an actor, incorporating now into his filmmaking style. And I was like, again, it's just the smaller Netflix movie definitely has a little bit of spectacle to it in terms of the music and just kind of like the life of this legendary composer. However, I do think the star of this movie is Carey Mulligan. Carey Mulligan, this is flawless. I think this might be her best performance. Listen, I thought she was great in Promising Young Woman. I mean, all her roles that she's been in, she's fantastic. But I think she's phenomenal in this. And I still think Lily Gladstone deserves the Oscar. She was still my favorite performance, by not liking that movie as much, Kills of the Flower Moon. But man, Carey Mulligan is just tremendous in this. Just the way she talks, the way she moves, the amount you could tell the amount of this love and passion she has playing Felicia, and it's just like wow, just that I was in awe of just watching her performance of like wow, because it embodies like a true Hollywood icon in a performance. We're just like wow, this is just a this riveting performance, and it's haunting at times. It's if you know the again, I don't want to spoil too much, but if you know her story, you know like the family story of her and her family and what she goes through, is just like wow, you see this woman just who's again an actress playing an actress, but just the love and just like how much she loves Lenny, how much she loves her family, how much she loves acting, and it's like the way she looks at Bradley Cooper, the way she looks at her fam, the way she like performs, and it's a very just again very inspiring performance. And the whole time I'm like, listen, I love you, Bradley, but Carey Mulligan is running laps around you. And I was just really in awe of her performance. And when things get really dark and serious, just the way the things she snaps from like happy to sad, or the crying, or her emotion, it's just like wow, you're watching a very just again riveting performance. And I do think Lily Gladstone's going to win the Oscar, but I really do think Carey Mulligan has one of the best performances I've seen in a very long time from anyone. And I was like, wow, I'm just in awe. I think I'm liking her more and more as an actor. Again, loved her in Promising Young Woman, Blue Valentine, list goes on and on. But she really, really is something special. Oh, she's in her small roles in like Saltburn, Pride and Prejudice, Drive. I love Drive. Even in She Said was very underrated. Wasn't a big fan of Great Gatsby, but I thought she was good in it. This is her best performance, if you ask me. I think she's flawless, and I do think Bradley Cooper directs her very well. And I'll say this too: I think Bradley Cooper's direction is definitely better in this than his performance in this. No docking his performance whatsoever, but I do think his direction definitely is stronger in this than I would say his performance. Definitely interested. I was definitely the black and white at first. I was like, is it gonna get old and tiring? I think the black and white is definitely used. He definitely utilizes it very well in terms of storytelling, because the way it's told from beginning of his career to the end of his career, close to it almost. And I was like, okay, cool. The black and white isn't too distracting. It has a purpose for it, and the opening scene alone, when he wakes up in his apartment in New York, and the classical music's playing, and you see him run out from his apartment to the stage, to like the opera house, or the orchestra house, whatever. And it's very old school Hollywood. It's definitely a love letter. This movie's definitely a love letter to Leonard Bernstein's music, his career, and his legacy, but also old time Hollywood, like the 40s, 20s, that golden, quote unquote, golden age of Hollywood. And it definitely feels like that. I think Cooper does a good job of kind of just like paying homage to that. Again, you also have Scorsese and Spielberg, two of like the pioneers, icons of Hollywood, by your side, kind of like producing this. So you're definitely in good hands. But a lot of the camera work, a lot of cinematography, and just like the direction works together very, very well. The music, I said this in my Bob Marley review too. The music in this definitely is a character of its own, just like the composing of its own, but also the music itself is just plays a huge pivotal role in the movie. And I do like that when the music itself, like you feel like just like it, the presence is so strong and so powerful that you feel like its own character among the actors and performers. And another thing too is that the composing scenes themselves are very impressive. I know like everyone's talking about the one scene where like he's composing, like I think he was like older, when he's older in his career, where Bradley Cooper is composing this orchestra in front of hundreds of thousands of people, and you see the sweat, you see just like Bradley Cooper is going full Leonard Bernstein. And now seeing the real footage and seeing the movie, Cooper does a great job of kind of not mimicking, but like definitely like paying homage, but also just embodying Leonard Bernstein in that way, just like the way he moves his composing, composing stick, and just like the way he kind of just like he really goes full Leonard Bernstein. And he's not half-assing this. Again, like people are docking him for being too Oscar hungry, but you know what? Those composing scenes, Cooper's giving his all, and there's no doubt about it. He's giving his all, and he's very just like in the moment. He's embodying what Leonard Bernstein is, what a great composer is, and I give him a lot of props for that, because I think it's like just he did his homework, he did his research, he did his studying, and you can tell that Cooper definitely wants to like just really pay respect to Leonard Bernstein. And the big thing that I remember seeing the first image, I think during COVID, I want to say, it's been on for a while, was that you see like you saw Bradley Cooper in like the Leonard Bernstein, prosthetics and like the makeup and everything. And I'll tell you what, I thought the prosthetics, the way they made both Bradley Cooper and Carey Mulligan looks flawless. Like, it's not CGI, it's not anything kind of just like, oh, okay, it's practical. And really, I do think the prosthetics that Bradley Cooper has looks really remarkable. It really does. From the beginning to the end of the movie, like, I really do think the makeup and costume department did a really good job. Practical special effects people did a really good job of doing the makeup, doing the prosthetics really well, because Bradley Cooper, at times I'm like, oh, that's right, I'm looking at Bradley Cooper, even though I think his direction is better than his performance. Cooper does a good job of kind of just like losing himself within this role. And there are times where I was like, that's right, that's Bradley Cooper. In the beginning, it's obvious it's him, but like as the movie goes on, timeline goes on, it's definitely like, wow, like I do forget sometimes that I'm watching Bradley Cooper, in the prosthetics and the older prosthetics, whatever. And even at the end too, where I was like, I still find it hard to believe that's Bradley Cooper. And I give him a lot of props for kind of losing himself in this role, but I do think his special effects, his makeup and hairstyling team did a phenomenal job. There's one scene in this particular that really struck me to a core. It's when they're at a doctor's office. It's Bradley Cooper, Carey Mulligan, Lenny, and Felicia. And they're at a doctor's office, and one of them hears bad news. And the way the thing is like lit, the scene is lit and shot in this really kind of like small doctor's office. It just like struck a chord with me that was like, whoa, what is this? And the way it's so like, it's a little claustrophobic, but the way it's so focused in on both Lenny and Felicia is very, to me, really just like, wow, it's one of the best shots I've ever seen in a movie probably in quite some time. And the way the camera just like focuses on them, doctor comes in, how lit the room is, how like it's how warm, how intense the room feels, and it's a very intense moment in the movie, and you're just like, whoa, you feel the intensity of it all, you feel that. But seeing the movie now a couple of days ago, this scene has not left my head, and I'm like, wow, I get a lot of props to his cinematographer and Cooper's direction of how they shot the scene, because we've all seen this scene before. I don't want to spoil anything, but you've seen this before, like when they're in a doctor's office and something bad happens or bad news is given. It's kind of like, oh, okay, it's shot like this, but it's very haunting, but also you can't keep your eyes off this scene. And I was very just in awe of this one particular moment that, if you know what I'm talking about, it's the doctor scene where someone hears bad news, and just the intensity and the performances all around that were just like, whoa, this is masterful. And I do think I get a lot of props to, again, Cooper's direction, but also cinematographer, and also Carey Mulligan's like just, I think, top tier performance. I have to go through the cons, unfortunately, and although there are a lot of things that I do appreciate this movie, I don't think this movie fully worked for me, unfortunately. And I don't know what it is. It's hard to like put my tongue on like, okay, what the issue was. I think the movie is definitely messy in terms of storytelling and just like narrative structure, because I docked Bob Marley One Love for this, is that I think that movie was kind of all over the place in terms of like timeline and storytelling direction. I felt the same way, very close to Bob Marley One Love in Maestro. I was like, okay, what story are you telling? What's the tone? What do you want to accomplish with this movie? And I do think that Bradley Cooper's writing, along with his co-writer Josh Singer, they don't know what movie they're telling all the time. And it's like, are you telling the story of his legacy? Are you telling a love story between him and his wife and the love he has for his family? Or are you telling about his flaws as a person? Because in the movie it shows he wasn't very, I guess, loyal to his wife. I don't think he was. What the movie's telling me, I don't know much about his personal life. There's more research about it, but the movie does not depict him in the best light at times. And I think a lot of people are like, this is a slander. I don't think this movie's slander, because in Bohemian Rhapsody they also show, Freddie Mercury not in the best light either. So, but he's not like glorified as a villain or anything like that. But they show that these people have flaws and cons, despite being a family person, having a family or whatever. And this movie, definitely struggle sometimes of like, wait, what? And it's all over the place. Like the way the timeline moves, the way they try to cover certain parts of his life, it's a little messy. It's a little convoluted. And I was like, because again, I think what Cooper did really well in Stars Born was that he told this story narratively very well. It jumped around a little bit in terms of like where they start, where he meets Lady Gaga, where Lady Gaga's career progresses, whatever, and excels. But you follow along just fine. But with this, I was having a little trouble of like, wait, we're jumping a lot like, really quick and just like into things. I get it. You don't want to tell a 3-hour biopic about this guy. I mean, you could, but narratively, I think the movie kind of felt like almost a second cut of the movie that they were still editing it, or that could be the script too, or maybe the script was just like, hey, one draft, we're done. And I don't know how many drafts of the script there was personally. I mean, probably online somewhere, but it has a problem with the structure. And I think I'm noticing a lot of biopics, or movies based on true people, is that they don't know what movie they want to tell. They have all these ideas like, hey, we want to include this. I do think I would assume that the Bernstein family was consulted. I've seen interviews with Bradley Cooper and his family on CBS or whatever, on Variety, YouTube, whatever. And so there's probably some things that they were like, don't put this in here. Or like how the Bob Marley movie had, like his whole family produced that movie. They go, you can say this, but don't include this. And a lot of the times, a lot of these movies are consulted by either close friends or family that's still alive, or people who are very close to these people who are no longer with us. I just don't know what the structure was of this movie. It just cut around, it just jumped around, and then it went back, and then went forward, and then it was messy, and you just didn't know when things were happening and how long it's been since this moment, and how long this has passed since there, or what year are we in, stuff like that. And I don't need to just to like lay it out for me plain and simple, but I just don't think it's messy. It's messy, and I think there should have been more time spent establishing where we are, when this is, what has happened since then. But it jumps around a lot, and just like I think the movie should just focus either, again, my same thing I said with Bob Marley was that you either start from born to death, or focus on just really a certain part of his career. I think Bradley Cooper tried to get a little too ambitious with this and trying to like cram a lot in this 2-hour runtime, where it's like you should have focused on a specific time in his life, or do the born to death kind of origin to end of his career story. And I don't know, it felt this little rushed in terms of like just typical structure of biopics or movies, where I was having a little trouble just kind of following through. And at the end, I don't know, the end is something kind of weird where we jump again. So again, the aspect ratio, the aspect ratio is 4:3. I think I'm getting a little tired of filmmakers using the 4:3 ratio. I think it's kind of more of a gimmick now. Like, look, we shot in the old way, the 4:3, how movies used to be filmed. Yeah, if you want to use that, I get it. But at the same time, like, what is your narrative purpose telling this movie? Yes, this movie was shot back. This movie was takes place a long time ago. Then it progresses, years on. But like a movie like Saltburn, or I'm trying to think of a movie I saw recently that was 4:3. I think Poor Things. It's like, okay, why is 4:3 such a big thing now? Like, use it narratively, use it for a reason. But if you're not going to use it for a reason, it's not really needed. So again, it starts with black and white, and then it goes to color. And I think too that the movie kind of goes from black and white to color just randomly. And I want to know why he chose to, like, the moment that he chose to go from black and white to color. I want to know why, because it kind of just happens. You're just like, okay, it happened, but what made you change it? Colors. I don't know. That's me kind of like, huh? And then it goes from 4:3 to the very end. It goes to like the full 16:9, like, widescreen ratio, just kind of randomly. And I wonder if it's because because the time we're in now, everything's a widescreen. But again, this movie could have been 4:3 widescreen 16:9 the entire time. It wouldn't have been a big deal. And the movie ends. It kind of ends just like abruptly with something that happens, and I I won't spoil anything, but he's much older now, and he's teaching this class to young composers. And it cuts to a scene very randomly, and I'm just like, I don't know, it didn't feel needed, or it just didn't feel placed properly. Just the way it was cut and the way it was edited to that, I was like, huh, I don't know. I don't know what he was trying to say with that scene. It could have been the movie still, but maybe not so quickly edited or quickly shot put in. So I have a problem with the editing a little bit because the editing could kind of over the place too. So that again goes to more storytelling and direction from him. But I don't know. I was liking the movie, then I wasn't liking it, then I was liking it, then I was kind of like unsure about it. So I don't know. I do think there are some flaws with it. I think people are being a little too mean about Bradley Cooper online and Twitter and film Twitter and discourse, whatever. I think people are a little mad at his portrayal of this. I don't think this movie's any slander or just like hate against Leonard Bernstein. I think this movie is made from love and awe that Bradley Cooper had for Leonard Bernstein. I just don't think it was executed the best way or told the best way it could have. Again, it's told with love. It's told with a lot of passion and just a lot of just ambition that Bradley Cooper had to tell the story. I just don't think that maybe this would have been better if he had another movie down under his belt as a director. I think starring in it, he would have been fine. I think starring in it would be great. And I think his direction in this is really great. However, I just do think maybe that he needed some more time to evolve as a director or the filmmaker, then do something. Do like Star is Born, do a second movie, and do this movie as a third or fourth. Because I think it's very ambitious for a first-time filmmaker to go, cool, I made a remake of a movie for the fifth time or fourth time. I'm going to do a biopic about it, one of the most legendary composers of all time. Boom, I'm ready. Although, I admire his direction in this, I just don't know if he was ready for this movie as a filmmaker. And I think Scorsese was attached to it at one point. Spielberg was attached to it at one point. One of the producers, I believe. And then it was him. I just don't know. I just don't know what was the purpose of him telling this movie. Because it just was a lot over the place, and it was just a lot of things thrown in, not given enough time to like kind of fully, flesh out, develop, or just fully kind of just like, just show us the life of Bernstein, and here's why I want to make this movie. I never felt that, unfortunately. One good thing I forgot to mention was that I thought Maya Hawke, who plays his daughter, was awesome. I thought she has great chemistry between herself and Bradley Cooper, and great chemistry between her and Carey Mulligan. And I like that angle a lot of the children, but it's also kind of crowbarred in at times where you're like, okay, we're gonna mention this thing about like this controversy between the daughter and the dad, this rumor that she hears at like school or camp, whatever, and it's just not brought up again. It just kind of just goes like, wait, huh? So again, there's a lot of things that I think the writers and Bradley Cooper wanted to say in this movie. I think they're trying to cram too much in this 2-hour runtime that it didn't really feel earned or didn't feel like kind of just like deserved or didn't feel like fully developed yet. And again, this movie has 81% Rotten Tomatoes. Audience score, not the best. I think it's like 55, not the best. But there are a lot of good things about this movie. But I want to love this movie. Having that I love Bradley Cooper and I love Carey Mulligan and parties involved. I wanted to love this movie because I love Star is Born so much. I love Bradley Cooper. It fell flat for me. But I'm still going to give it, I think, 6 out of 10 just because there are good things. Cinematography, the music, the acting. There's a lot. Narrative-wise, there's a lot of issues I have with it that I think could have been improved if more time was spent, or they knew what they wanted to tell, or they knew what kind of story they wanted to tell, what they wanted to include. Because I do think a lot of ideas were thrown in, but how do you execute them well without feeling rushed or without feeling kind of just placed in there randomly? So, yeah, I'm gonna give Maestro a 6 out of 10. I do think Carey Mulligan deserves the Oscar. I think she's great, but I do think Gladstone deserves it more. I do think she definitely earned that, rightfully so. Alrighty, guys. So, with that down, now I have Amazon Prime's totally different move, different vibe, different kind of setting. I'm going to action and thrilling and the novels of Lee Child, which is Reacher season 2. on Amazon Prime, starring Alan Richardson as Jack Reacher. For some starters, I absolutely love the first Jack Reacher movie with Tom Cruise. I know, probably hot opinion, hot take. That movie to me was definitely like a departure for Tom Cruise. And he's still playing a badass, but it wasn't Ethan Hunt, it wasn't Oblivion, it wasn't, Mission Impossible, whatever. It wasn't like, oh, look at me. It was definitely a more toned down action thriller, but just the setup and development of it all was very interesting. Of like this lone wolf, kind of like this. He's not a cop. He's not an investigator. He's an ex army, commander, or I forgot his title exactly, but it's just like he's kind of like this like almost kind of like a modern day cowboy, and when cowboys aren't a thing anymore, or not as popular anymore. And I thought what Tom Cruise and Chris McQuarrie did in that first one was awesome, because it had the action, it had a great setup, it had great characters, it was fun. And I remember seeing this when I want to say, with me, Joel, we were in high school still. This is like going on 12 years ago. And it was so much fun seeing it with friends, because we were all Tom Cruise fans. Tom Cruise is the guy. He's one of the biggest movie stars of all time. And it was a fun experience of us, high schoolers kind of being obnoxious in the movie theater, laughing, having a good time, making jokes, watching this kind of just like badass movie. And the car chase in Pittsburgh is awesome. The ending scene with Reacher versus Jai Courtney's character and his kind of like henchmen it's very fun. David Oyelowo, I'm probably butchering his name, is great. Is great in that movie. Rosamund Pike is great in that movie. Jai Courtney is great in that movie. It's a really underrated Tom Cruise action movie, because the movie gives itself time to kind of like explain what's going on, what's happening, who's who, his background, stuff like that. And then the second one came out, I want to say 2016, and I really do not like that second one. It was a Jack Reacher Never Go Back. I thought that movie was garbage. With all due respect, I was like, oh, what now? It just took away why I loved the first one so much. I still love the first one, despite that second one being terrible. But watching it, I was like, what the hell is this? Because it took away the cool lone wolf story. It took away, like, it felt like another generic action movie, and I was like, no, I don't want to see this. The first one was good because it balanced action and story structure really well, and wasn't like action. It had the action paced out very well, where the second one was like, look, action scene, bad guys, henchmen, and the villain was very generic. Again, the villain in the first one was generic too, don't get me wrong, but I just felt like, bro, what is this? And as someone who loves the first one, I was deeply, deeply devastated and disappointed with the second one. And noticed that anyone involved or Kobe Smulders, but I just like, what is this? It felt like almost a parody of John Wick, or a parody of like other Tom Cruise movies. I'm like, the humor was atrocious, the action was so bland and boring, and I just didn't. The story with like the girl and Jack did not work whatsoever. And then it felt like a Hallmark movie, like a really bad Hallmark action movie starring Tom Cruise. And I was like, what is this? And I was so devastated. I was like, if they do a third one, redeem it. I do think not having Chris McQuarrie directing and writing that one definitely shows 100%. You see Mission Impossible 5, 6, and 7, or Edge of Tomorrow. You can tell McQuarrie has a good sense of writing for Tom Cruise and his direction. And there's like this second one, that Never Go Back, whatever it's called, took the first one and goes, cool, we're gonna throw this away, we're just being kind of stupid and fun, and not even fun, and just like generic. And I did not like that movie at all. And I remember leaving, I was like, I have a bad taste in my mouth now for this. And if they do a third one, I'll watch it, but man, this sucked. And of course they said, no, second one didn't do well, it was a bit of a flop, unfortunately, so we're gonna scrap it. And I'm like, all right, well, Tom, you have Mission Impossible, you have Top Gun, you're fine. And then I heard they're going to do it on Amazon Prime. I'm like, okay, you were serious about it. How are you going to do it? How are you going to develop it? And I remember Alan Richardson got cast, and I was like, oh, Thad from Blue Mountain State. I'm like, all right, he was Raphael in Ninja Turtles, I guess so. And I was optimistic, but I was like, okay. And he bulked up. He got huge. And I was like, oh, I see it. Because I think in the book, he's like 6'5", and Tom Cruise is like, what, 5'7", whatever he is. And Al Richardson is like 6'3", whatever, so he's more close to the kind of the built and the height of Reacher. I thought that season 1 was fucking awesome. Excuse my language. Was fucking awesome. I was like, this is what I'm talking about. This is what the second movie did terribly. This is the more feel of the first movie. Again, the lone wolf, kind of just like, in bad, not the best look. He's kind of like this outsider in this town. I thought the action was awesome. Again, it was paced out very well. It wasn't like action all the time. It was paced out. The story, the structure was told very well in terms of pace. Narratively wise, like, it just worked. I like the small town feel to it. I like the outsider coming in, discovering what's going on. I like the supporting cast, whether it was the chief of police, the cop, and it just felt like why I love Reacher so much. I was like, cool, they got it down right. I don't need another movie with Tom Cruise. This is cool with it. So again, the first one did really. I think I binged the first. No, I saw a screening of the first 2 episodes like a month before it came out, and I was like, let's go. I was like, guys, gotta watch Reacher on again. I was very naive and optimistic. I'm like, I haven't seen the rest of the season yet, but the first 2 episodes I saw were killer. It was so good. Told my dad about it, told all my friends about it. I was like, gotta see this show. It's awesome. And sure enough, the rest of the season 1 came out. I think I binged the entire season that weekend, and I was like, this is what I'm talking about. I loved it. Loved it. Probably my favorite seasons of television in 2022. I love that. I love that first season so much. Obviously, it did really well in terms of streaming and viewership, whatever. And then season 2 was announced. I'm like, cool, I'm there day 1. And I'm not going to lie. Season 2, to me, right off the bat, I'll say definitely was a step down from season 1. I don't feel the same way I felt about the second Jack Reacher movie with Tom Cruise. But I would say that I did not like this season as much as the first season. And I was definitely disappointed at times. Because season 2 basically is that one of his old members of the army turns up dead, and his old team kind of like calls him, hey, our old team is showing up dead one by one. So he kind of reunites with his old squad, the special investigators, and they kind of figure out like investigating what's going on, who's behind what, terrorism, is it cyber attack, what's going on. It takes away this season, unfortunately. The book, from what I've heard, the book is based off of. This felt like a little generic. It's team up movie, and it takes away why I think Jack Reacher is so cool as a character of the lone wolf kind of structure. Like, he's a one man guy. Again, doesn't have a past, doesn't have an apartment, doesn't have a house, doesn't have no mortgage, no credit cards. Takes bring out pension via Western Union or some kind of like check transfer, or whatever. He had one toothbrush. He wore the same pair of clothes, same pair of boots. It's cool. It's a very, very appealing story. It's why the first season was so good. If you ask me why the first movie is so good, because it's a very kind of just like loner, but he's this very basic guy, but he's very smart. The way he figures out certain crimes, the way he figures out certain certain like detective shit, basically. And this was a team-up thing, and I don't know, it just didn't really work for me the way. I still enjoyed it. I think the chemistry between all the team works very well. I wasn't like, y'all were special investigators for the army? Sure. No, you feel, they all feel like ex-military for sure, and they all work together very well. It just, to me, it felt like the season was dragged out a lot, where it was a lot of just like, okay, a lot of build up, what's going to happen next, and then, okay, this happens going on, and we're still building up, and it didn't have the same pace the way the first season did. I did like the character. Again, team itself definitely worked, but to me, it feeling like kind of generic, like crime show at times. Like, look, the team, like, gotta figure out who did wrong. What's going on? What's going on here? Figure out we're traveling this state now. We're gonna go on a cover. We gotta find this. And then I'm like, okay, it just didn't feel as special as the first one did. I did like the guy who plays the detective in this. I thought it was, again, there's a lot of elements that did work. Where like, who can you trust? Who can't you trust? That I did like a lot. This guy was in. He was in Entourage. That's what I know him from. Dominic Lombardi, who plays an NYPD detective, and to me, I liked his kind of like approach from his character, because again, he's like, can we trust him? Can we not trust him? Albert Patrick, who plays the villain, like in most things, he kind of another villain, and. It's kind of funny Terminator 2 joke. If you know Terminator 2 is a funny joke, and they're like, oh, that's kind of funny. And we'll call back to it. And then like the writer said, oh, it was kind of like unintentional. I'm like, sure. But also placing Reacher in New York City, I was like, all right, it's just another city now. It's a New York City kind of crime story, and I've seen that so many times before. That's why I liked the first one was kind of small town of like nowhere, Georgia, and that worked. Or the first one was set in Pittsburgh. Like, okay, that's cool because Pittsburgh, is a big city, but not a lot of like crime stories that I've seen. I've set in Pittsburgh or set in Pennsylvania. Like that's kind of cool. I like that. But them putting Reacher and his team in New York City to kind of feel generic. I don't know, another crime New York City thing. Like what's gonna happen here? And some of the humor worked. Some of the humor did not work. And there's times where you can tell the joke will be coming, and you're like, okay, that was it. Action's good. Again, the action for sure is definitely violent as the first one. And what I like about this series is that both season 1 and 2 is that they definitely take the TVMA rated R violence for sure. So the Tom Cruise one was PG-13, for gets more and more of a mass audience. But since it's streaming and on television, they can do a lot more with the TVMA, with the rated R rating for television. And I do like they embrace the violence and the language, the cursing, the language. Don't get held back, because I think if it was PG-13 or was TV-14, whatever, you would feel like it's kind of amateur. It's kind of like it's kind of like a little basic, a little bit. But I do give a lot of props to Amazon and Skydance for definitely embracing like the hardcore rated R TVMA nature of Reacher and the violence and the action and the language overall and the mature themes, you would say. But yeah, for episodes, it just felt really dragged on. The finale definitely, I think the first episode and the finale were probably my favorite. I think Alan Richardson is a great Jack Reacher. I think he's killing it as the role. I'm looking forward to season 3 a lot. I think I looked at the synopsis of the third season, which is the book is with the season based off the book, whatever. And I was like, cool. They seem like more that I'm interested in, but I do hope they go back to like the lone wolf, one man army. I don't need no help. I don't need no backup. I got this. I'm a built like a machine. I'm gonna take out anyone that like come my way, but also use my my sense of smart of kind of like Batman work in a way of just like, yeah, I'm gonna figure out this stuff, whatever. I'll figure out the truth, and if it's in my way, I will hunt you down. And again, go back to that kind of like this structure of Jack Reacher. But again, we'll see. I have hopes for season 3, but I will say that season 2 was definitely a bit of a letdown from season 1. I think I gave season 1 like a 9 out of 10 because I was like, this is awesome. I would give season 2, I'm probably torn between a 6.5 and a 7. Because there are things I liked a lot of this season, but overall just kind of felt flat, and it took away my enjoyment of the show, despite me loving the first season so much. So yeah, I give it a 6.5 out of 10 because there's good things to it. Again, everyone's acting is really good. It's some dialogue was definitely corny. I'm like, oh, okay, like it's kind of generic, kind of like action, talk. Yeah, let's go get him. Let's go get our paycheck, something like that. It's something generic like that. So I was like, oh, okay, I could dock you that for. But yeah, I'll give it a 6.5. Still still on board as a fan. Still on board as want to watch more. Want to see more from Alan Richardson and Amazon doing in the season, but I hope they kind of redeem themselves for me. That is for season 3, because again, I love that first season so much. Alrighty, guys. So as I mentioned too, besides having 2 reviews for you, I have my final predictions for the Oscars, which are on this Sunday, March 10th, 2024, and I have my notes my little ballot right here in my book, my little file. Let's see. I haven't seen all the movies, unfortunately, so bear with. So I haven't seen Anatomy of a Fall. I haven't seen Past Lives. I haven't seen what's the other one? Zone of Interest. And I'm bummed I didn't get to see American Fiction for some reason. Again, it was a very small release, so I'll probably catch it after the Oscars, unfortunately, and like most of the movies. So okay, I'm gonna go along the ballot the way that has on the sheet. Actor in a leading role. I'm going with Cillian Murphy, Oppenheimer. I would love to see Paul Giamatti win for the holdovers, but I think Murphy's been just cleaning up, sweeping the awards this season. So, actor Cillian Murphy, Oppenheimer. Actor in supporting role, get to my man RDJ, Robert Downey Jr. for Oppenheimer. I think this is his best role since Iron Man. All right, actress in a leading role. You heard my review, Maestro. I love Carey Mulligan so much, but I think Lee Gladstone has this in the bag for Killers of the Flower Moon. That's quite the performance to beat or catch up to. All right, actress in a supporting role. Because my girl, Davine Joy Randolph, I thought she, in the holdovers, I thought the holdovers, I saw that back in October. I was like, this girl's going to win the Oscar this year. She's phenomenal. I think it's one of the best performances really in the past decade. So I think she has that in the bag. All right, animated feature film, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. But I think The Boy and the Heron might win. Cinematography, Hoyte von Hoytema for Oppenheimer, because the IMAX cinematography, man, at IMAX, something special. Costume design, I said Barbie originally, but I think I'm going to get the Poor Things now seeing, because I'm like, wow, the costumes in Poor Things are quite incredible. Directing, my man Chris Nolan finally will finally get his Oscar for directing, which is much overdue. So yeah, Chris Nolan, Oppenheimer. So these I don't know, I haven't seen, so I'm gonna go through these pretty quickly. Documentary of a feature film, don't know any of these. I'm gonna give it to Eternal Memory. Yeah, kind of like a throwaway. Documentary short film, I'm gonna do the ABCs of book burning. A book burning, so I haven't seen any other. Sorry, book banning. Sorry, not burning. Book banning. So I've seen the other ones. I'm gonna do that one. Film editing, again, Oppenheimer. Holdover is great. Was edited really well. Poor Things as well, but I think Oppenheimer had this in the bag. International feature film, I'm hearing amazing things about it. I think it's gonna be Zone of Interest, which it's gonna be hard to watch, but I heard it's a movie that like deserves an Oscar as well. So Zone of Interest for international feature film. Makeup and hairstyling. Oh, Poor Things for sure. Poor Things because I think that the makeup and hairstyling of that was out of this world, and 100% Poor Things. Original score, I got Ludwig for Oppenheimer. That score is just very riveting, very just powerful, no doubt about it. Original song, I would like to see I'm Just Ken win from Barbie, but I think Billie Eilish has this in the bag for What I Was Made For from Barbie as well. So Billie Eilish, original song, What I Was Made For. Best Picture, having only seen Barbie, Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, it's Oppenheimer. I think Oppenheimer, even though it was in my top 10, not my favorite Chris Nolan movie. I wouldn't call it a masterpiece either. But I think just how that movie was made and how that movie just had that impact it did. I think how much people love Christopher Nolan, how much people love that movie is definitely gonna be Oppenheimer. But we're surprised if we see like a surprise like the past couple of years. So yeah, Oppenheimer. Production design, Barbie. I mean, you can't take away how well that movie was. Yeah, movie was designed in terms of production and a set design, stuff like that. When I saw that back in July, I was like, oh, the production this movie is out of this world insane. So definitely Barbie. Animated short film, don't know any of these. I picked The War Is Over, inspired by the music of John and Yoko. Yeah, going with that one. There's one too, live action short film, don't know any of them. I'm picking The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. I think it was Wes Anderson. So yeah, we have that one. Sound, Oppenheimer, because of how the sound in that movie is definitely interesting. I think Chris Nolan works a lot with sound in his movies, so I gotta give to Oppenheimer. Visual effects, it will probably be Godzilla -1. I'm giving it to The Crater. I think The Crater was a very overlooked movie this past year. I think the visual effects in that movie are out of this world insane, especially in a year of like people criticizing all the VFX that we've seen the past year, whether it's Indiana Jones or Flash or Ant-Man and the Wasp. Like last year, I mean, I know how hard VFX workers work and how very just like tight deadline feel and how stressful that is. I'm not taking that away from anybody, but I do think The Crater has some of the most beautiful, stunning visuals I've seen in the movie in quite a while. That the screenplay, that was tough. I think Poor Things might get it. I'm gonna give it to Oppenheimer because of the way the dialogue. It's Chris Nolan's dialogue, and Chris Nolan is always very interesting and very just written very well. So I'm gonna give it to Oppenheimer for that one. And the last one is original screenplay. I mean, again, in a perfect world, I would love to see the Holdovers win screenplay, but from what I've heard, I think it won a bunch of other awards for original screenplay. Anatomy of a Fall. So I'm gonna give it to Anatomy of a Fall for best original screenplay. But yeah, guys, if you want to do your own ballots, I think it's on like the Oscars website, Oscars 2024 ballot. I've been doing these ballots since I was like, I think, a kid growing up watching the Oscars. So they're fun to do. I mean, you don't win anything unless you're betting at like BetMGM or Sports or FanDuel, whatever. But yeah, it's gonna be. I'll be on a plane back, unfortunately, so I won't be watching them live. But I'll be probably watching when I get back from my flight. So looking forward to seeing who wins, whatever. But I think it's kind of like a standard year for the Oscars. Nothing crazy, nothing like Moonlight winning Best Picture or La La Land mix-up, stuff like that. But yeah, we'll see. I'm looking forward to seeing who wins. But I think 2024 is already starting off for a good year for films. Like Dune Part 2, I think, is really an Oscar contender for next year. I'm hearing amazing things about The Fall Guy. I can't wait to see that in May. But yeah, guys, I hope you enjoy this review roundup episode this week. Remember, too, we'll be giving away a Amazon gift card when we hit 200 followers, 200 ratings on Apple Podcasts. So if you answer, please comment, rate, and review the show, and leave your username so I can on Instagram or TikTok, whatever, so I can find you and DM you. But yeah, please don't forget to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts. And as always, guys, we will see you at the movies.